and share screen. So, sorry, what you guys are seeing right now is probably my calculator. Give me just a second here. Let's pull this up for you guys. All right. Now, and I'm not going to apologize for this, but this is going to seem kind of quick. We are running through everything about writing equations. And when I say everything, I mean everything about writing equations. So this is being recorded. Some of this stuff you might want to write down. Some of it you don't need to write down. When I say we're going quick, I mean I'm going to go real quick. Most of what we're talking about right now was an Algebra 1 standard, not even Algebra 2, and definitely not pre-cal. But this is 1.1 in your book, so we're going to get to the pre-cal stuff here in just a couple minutes. You probably don't need to write anything on this screen at all. You don't need to write any of this. How you were taught was that slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. In other words, it is the change in y over the change in x. Now that you guys are in a pre-cal or a kind of a college or pre-college class, all this means is the change in y of the change in x. As long as it changes consistently, that's it. You guys will start to see this in calculus like crazy. That's just a delta y over delta x. It's a Greek letter, and it just means change. Again, I'm going to run through this very quickly. Remember, positive slopes, we always do slope from left to right. Positive slope is from left to right, goes up. Negative slopes from left to right goes down. If your slope is 0, what that means is it's not rising at all, or it is changing over time, or over your x values. However, this is changing, so that would be a number. So if you have zero slope, that means it's not rising at all, it's staying constant. If you have an undefined slope, up and down is undefined, which can't happen in real life. The reason that's undefined is because that's saying that something has changed and no time has taken place. So whatever stat you want, and the one that I was just thinking of that comes to baseball is that, let's say somebody's a 300 hitter, well, they can't become a 400 hitter unless they take more plate attempts. So, and it might just be one more plate attempt, but there has to be some change. So if it ever goes straight up and down, it's undefined. How do you remember that? Because up and down is undefined. Questions? All right, like I said, I'm going to go over this quick to get to the stuff that's perhaps a little more new. So I'm not going to do very many of these with you, or we're not going to do all 4 of these. We're going to do 2, 3, and 4 real quick. Don't even worry about number 1. So if I'm just asking you to find the slope, it is difference of y's over difference of x's. You guys already know this is an x and a y and an x and a y. Well, where do those 1s and 2s come from? That's like saying, well, this is my first point, so my first x and y. This is my second point. Now somebody's going to say, does it have to be y2 minus y1, which would be negative 6 plus 2, over x2 minus x1, which is negative 2 minus 4? The answer is, I do not have to go in that order. What if, for instance, this was the second point that I saw, and this was the first point? I could always do negative 2 plus 6, but if I go from negative 2 over here, then I have to go 4 minus negative 2. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. So you'll get the same answer either way. You just have to go in the same direction. Again, I know I'm going really quick. Does anybody have any questions?
I do, but I mean, it's not necessarily about this slide. When is this recording going to be posted on Canvas?
Uh, Typically right at the end of the period. So all of my recordings I've got a prep period right after this, and then I'm going to put that up. Also, since we're talking about my prep period real quick, I'm going to try and get your homework graded by the end of the day. The grade book will definitely be upgraded by the end of tomorrow. So your guys' homework takes me quite a bit longer to grade than everybody else's for obvious reasons. And I want to give you guys some feedback. So for the most part, you've already had that feedback, but I want to make sure that you guys understand what's going on. Okay. So there's that. Now I want to show you guys this right away. On number 3 and number 4, if we're trying to find the slope, and I know that y2 minus y1 is -3 plus 3, which is 0, I can stop. Why? Because if I ever have 0 over a number, your slope is 0. But let's look at that another way. If my x's are changing and my y is not, it's going to look like this. I've got the point 5, -3, which is over here, and 2, -3. It is just going to be a horizontal line. So there's no up or down. So my y value is not changing. On number 4, and I want you guys to see this, you don't even have to do any math. I see that my x values are not changing, but my y is. So if I've got the point 1, 2, and 1, -2, my y values are staying the same. I'm sorry, my y values are changing, my x values are staying the same, so my slope is undefined. The reason I'm pointing that out is because at the end, we're going to move on to the pre-cal stuff and still algebra 2, where I'm going to have you write an equation with the given slope. Questions on that? Okay. Now, real simple, write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form that goes through the 2 points. We're only going to do one of these. Again, I'm going to go fast. So if you need me to slow down, it's on you to ask, but this is all really still algebra 1 stuff. So you have to start by finding your slope. When you find your slope, so my slope is just -2. And the only reason that we're even talking about this right now is because it's been at least a year since you guys have seen this. So the very first thing you need to do is find your slope. Step 2 is going to be to pick a point. I do not care which point you use. You'll get the same answer. So find the numbers that you would prefer to work with. I always pick the ones closest to 0. Three is write the equation. On the next slide, I actually wrote some equations up here. Now, the reason I'm not telling you specifically how is because I do not care which one you use. My final answer needs to be in slope-intercept form. Some people, they were taught using point-slope form. So anytime you have a point and a slope, you use that, which is this. So I'm going to do this same problem 2 different ways. So write your equation. You're only plugging in for the y1, the m, and the x1. So y minus -3 is y plus 3. Your slope was -2, x minus 1. Again, I'm going to slow down for a split second. Any questions? Now I'm going to show you this same problem 2 different ways. And it says make sure you write it in slope-intercept form. So all you have to do is distribute and solve for y. -2 times -1 is +2. Solve for y. Any questions? Again, I know without a doubt that you guys have done this and you did it extensively in Algebra 1. You probably spent about 2 days with it in Algebra 2. We're only spending 1 day with it in pre-cal.
So after you find the slope with the same points as number one, we just plug it into the equation.
That's it.
All right,
Now,
cool.
and Michael, here's another way to do this. So some of you guys were taught to do it this way. Some of you guys were taught just to put it, go ahead and put it in, oh, I wrote a P, put it in slope intercept form. I don't care how you do it. I'm not one of those teachers that say you have to do things the way I teach them at all. Now, I lean on the way I tend to do them, but just because I've either found them easier or that's the way that I think you've been taught. But slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b, right? Well, we have a y value, we have an x value, and we have an m value. So all we need to do are plug these points, and we could either one, plug that in, and then that'll give us our slope and our y-intercept. So my y value was -3, my slope was -2. Man, lots of people getting kicked off and just, what is going on? Storm?
Yeah, I got kicked out.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Oh,
me
wow.
too.
Okay. Hopefully you guys didn't miss too much. I can go back over that if we need to. That was crazy. I just had literally like 20 people just come back on. All right. So what I just said was, oh boy. We just had like 8 more get kicked off.
Yeah, my whole Zoom application just like stopped. It like disappeared.
I'm
So it
seeing
was
the
like I
number.
wasn't even in Zoom anymore.
We just had 33 and we're down to like 20. Oh boy. 22.
Yeah, it just completely stopped.
Well, this will be fun. Okay. Sorry, if that happens, we'll try and reconnect, but you guys can kind of see what's going on. That just kind of threw me off here. So slope intercept form, you can plug in for your y, your m, and your x. So my y was -3, my slope was -2, my x is 1, and all I really have to do is solve for b. So -2 times 1 is -2. Add 2 here, and I find that my b value is -1.
So we could use either formula.
Either one is fine. Now, remember, I'm not done. So your last step is to write the equation, which is y equals mx plus b. So that's what it should look like. Either way, we get the same answer.
Okay.
I do not care how you do it. And if you have questions on it, that's fair. It's more than fine. I just don't want to spend too much time going over this. Okay?
Okay.
And it's being recorded so you guys can go back and watch. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen and move on. Again, I know some of you guys have gotten kicked off and we're still missing 9 more people. So here's the formulas that we're going to be using. We'll talk about all of these in just a second. The first one, I'm going to stop here for about a minute and a half, and I want you to do 1 and 2. So try them on your own, and then we'll move on. About 1 more minute. Oh boy, I'm losing more people. Oh, this is going to be a long day. Caroline, does this happen every class or just this one?
No, this just started. That was the second time I got kicked out.
Yeah. All right, take about 30 more seconds and we'll go over it. Okay. That should be plenty of time. Again, I apologize for all the connection issues. So write an equation through the point with the slope. I don't care if you write it in slope-intercept form, point-slope form, whichever way you do this. So it's all plug and chug either way. So let's go ahead and do it slope-intercept form again. So y equals m, oh yeah, x plus b. Now, the reason I gave you guys this is because it's a fraction. I gave it to you because it's a fraction. I'm not going to shy away from fractions in here. If you ever have a fraction, you times the top, divide by the bottom. So -3 times -1 is +3 divided by 2 is just 3/2 plus b. Subtract 3/2 from both sides, and we've got a problem here. So 2 minus 3/2. Remember, when you add or subtract fractions, you have to have a common denominator. By the way, your calculator will do this just fine. But 2/1 as a fraction with a common denominator is really 4/2 minus 3/2. So my b value is 1/2. I have an m and I have my b. Y equals -1/2 x plus 1/2. Any questions? By the way, I don't want this as a decimal. If you've got an equation and you wrote this, why technically it's right, there's a cardinal sin in math here. What is that cardinal sin? Does anybody know why I hate this? Nobody? All right. So most math teachers would count this off, especially when you get to higher level math, just for the fact that you cannot ever keep a fraction and a decimal in the same equation or expression. Either both fractions or both decimals, but never one of each. So do not do this. I'd never want to see a fraction and a decimal in the same equation. If it were on a test, I wouldn't kill you for it, but you'd definitely miss a point. Next one, write the equation through the line to find your slope. So I've got -2 minus 2 over 3 plus 1. So my slope is -1. Pick a point. Y equals mx plus b. -1 times -1 is +1. Subtract 1. By the way, do I need that -1 in front of the x? Not the 1. I could have written it just like this. By the way, one of the reasons I want to tell you this is If I'm saying this one, I would say y equals negative 1x plus 1. If this one I'm reading it off, I would say y equals the opposite of x plus 1. You don't really ever call a variable negative. It's the opposite of that variable. Questions? And let's keep moving. All right. So this is a practical equation, a real life equation. The net sales for a car manufacturer, let me move this, were 14.61 billion in 2011 and 15.78 billion in 2012. Write a linear equation given the net sales y in terms of x, where x is the number of years. So it tells me right away, that x is my number of years and y is sales. It is helpful to write them out what your x and your y are. So your x has to be the years and y is your sales. Then I want to use the equation to predict the net sales in 2018. Awesome. All right. So I can do this a couple different ways, but let's start it out. So let's see, in 2011, so number of years, 2011, and I had 14.61 billion. The next time I had 2012, and I had 15.78 billion. So when you get something like this, by the way, I'm going to do this same question twice. When you get something like this, it is just the exact same math we were doing, but I'm going to show you why our final answer here might not make a whole lot of sense. So find your slope. How is it changing? So 15.78 minus 14.61 looks like it's going to be 1.17. 2012 minus 2001 or 2011 is 1. So my slope is 1.17. Now, what does that mean in the context of this problem? Make sure you're ready to answer those questions. What that means is each year, I would expect that I'm going to increase by $1.17 billion. Then use the equation to predict the net sales for 2018. So I know that that's 2018, and I'm trying to find the sales. I need to go back and write the equation. So y equals mx plus b. Let's get a calculator because it's going to get kind of ugly. So I've got 1.17 times 2011 and then I need to subtract that. So 14.61 minus 2352.87, and I get this. So here's my equation. I'm not ready to answer that last question just yet. Does anybody know why do I really not want to use that equation? It's fine, I can use it, but why do I not want to use that equation? Anybody have any idea? No one? All right, so let me give you guys kind of a hint, and then I do want to hear somebody talk. Here's why you don't really want to do that. Because this takes you all the way back to the year 0. Do you think they were talking about billions of dollars in year zero or car manufacturing in the year zero? Doesn't make any sense. So wait a minute, this isn't right because what did I forget to do anyway? I forgot to take this into account. So I only want to account for this from the year 2000. So everything I've done here is actually wrong because if I don't put a qualifying year, it goes back to zero every single time. All right, we don't want to talk about car manufacturing and billions of dollars back in the year zero, but when there's no cars. So instead, this is what I should be using. I still have my X is still going to be number of years. Hey, what just happened? My X is still years.
It's fine.
That's since 2000. And my Y is still cost. You'll get a similar answer, but look at how much more manageable this is. So years since 2000. So the first one has been 11 years, and it was 14.61. The second one was 12 years, and we got 15.78. So my slope is the same. My slope is still 1.17. But now that I'm writing the equation, now this accounts for the year 2000. So just from the year 2000. And now we can do that. So 1.17 times 11, and this looks better. So subtract that from both sides. 14.61 minus 12.87 is 1.74. So make sure that you guys read the directions all the way through before you start doing that. So my equation is this. And now use the equation to predict the net sales in 2018. So what value am I going to plug in for X this time?
18.
That's right. Now, either way, I would have ended up with the same answer. I just would have had the wrong equation. So in 2018, I would expect that this is my answer, which is, in terms of the context here, $22.8 billion. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, I get it, but I'm just like, why are you subtracting it? Like, again, like, why is it going to like negative and all that?
Why? Oh, why am I subtracting this 12.87?
Yeah, like, why? Yeah, like for the other numbers too.
Because I need to solve for B, so get B all by itself. So I should have dropped down that 14.61, but I just kept it here. So once I know what this is, I plug it back in. I need to solve for B, so subtract 12.87, and that's how I got that number. So 14.61 minus 12.87 is how I got 1.74.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. And I think that's probably pretty good. We got a couple other things. Sorry, I forgot real quick. So we're almost finished. This is the last part, and it is going to be on your homework for tonight. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. But we're finding 3 additional points that the line passes through. So I want to make sure that you understand what it means when I say your slope is 0. If your slope is 0, it's a straight line this way. So what values are changing? What values are staying the same? First of all, if I've got a straight line straight across horizontal, are my X values changing?
Yes.
Yes. My Y values are not. So my X values are changing, my Y aren't. If I'm trying 3 different ones, then that means my Y values are staying the same. So if my slope is 0 and I'm writing 3 additional points, my X values have to change, and I can pick anything. I could pick like 0, 1, -2, 1, or 7, 1. I'm just picking whatever X's. So as long as my X's are changing, my Y is staying the same, that's telling me it's horizontal. So let's look at B. All of a sudden, if my slope is undefined, remember, undefined is up and down. So if I had 2 points here, my X values are staying the same and my Y values are changing. So my X values are staying the same, my Y values are changing. So as long as I have one, whatever, it's gonna work. So I could have like 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, -17, whatever it is, as long as my X values are stagnant and my Y's are changing, that's telling me that I have an undefined or an up and down line. Now, the one that is perhaps the hardest is something like C. I can write an equation here. All I want to do is find 3 additional points. So I'm going to use point slope form. Now, if I want to know 3 other points that go through this, I can literally choose any value for X and then plug it in and find Y. So I just want to know 3 points that go through this line. Well, I'm going to pick something like this. I know that I want this to be even because my y-intercept is, or my slope is a half. So if I pick like my X is 5. 5 minus 7, -2. Oh, right, plus 2 equals, sorry. Y plus 2 equals that. So half of -2 is -1. Subtract 2. So when X is 5, my Y value is -3. Again, if I would have written this in slope-intercept form, I've got this. Subtract 7 halves. So I've got -4 halves minus 7 halves. So my equation is really this. And again, I can pick any value for X that I'd like to plug in here. Either one of these works. You're literally just picking a value for X and plugging it in. So let's plug another one in. Let's plug in like 9. If X is 9, 9 minus 7 is 2. Half of 2 is 1. There we go. Again, I know I'm going kind of quickly here. Somebody's going to say, well, why didn't you do like a negative or 0? I don't want to do 0 because this ends up odd, which will give me a fraction. But I will put in like -1. If X is -1, -1 minus 7 is -8. Half of -8 is -4. And I get -6. I think that was the last example I had planned for today. Does anybody have any questions? Let's say this one more time. If your slope is 0, Your x's are changing, your y's stay the same. So you can plug in any value for x as long as y is 1. If it's undefined, that means your y's are changing and your x value has to stay the same. So you can put anything you want in for y. If they give you a slope that actually is positive, negative, something besides 0 undefined, write the equation, pick a point for x, and plug it in to find y. Was that the last? This is the last one. Yep. The last thing you have to do with your assignment tonight, it's going to give you an equation and say write it in slope-intercept form. This just means solve for y. If that's the case, how do I move 5x to the other side? Subtract it. By the way, some teachers care about it. I do not. The order doesn't matter. So some people say, my teacher said I had to put the x in front. Not when you get to upper level math. And I'll explain why in 1 second. Slope-intercept form is simply solving for y because this is already telling you what your slope is and your y-intercept. The order doesn't matter. My slope is positive 5/7. My y-intercept is -2. Doesn't matter which order it gets. The coefficient for x is your slope. The constant is your y-intercept. I have something like this. Add 2/5 x to the other side. This is literally the last example we're doing. If you ever have a fraction, now I could tell you the simple math is I would divide everything by 1/3, but really let's get rid of the denominator. So if I multiply everything by the denominator, this becomes real simple. And only times the top. So 3 times 2 is 6. And one thing you guys need to know, which I'm sure you already do, is that that's what we're looking for, solve for y. I want to know the value of 1y. So as long as that's 1, that's it. If that, for instance, was 2/3, then I'd go back and I'd divide everything by 2. But that's it. Any questions? All right. Here's your assignment, and then I'll pull it up. So I didn't type it out. I wanted to make sure we got through everything first. Your assignment is 1.1. It's the worksheet 1.1. And it is 1 and then 7 through 49 odds. Omit, and I'll put this up there. Omit number 33. So it's 22 questions. Tomorrow we'll start by going over some of this stuff. And then we're going to finish 1.1 talking about parallel, perpendicular lines, so on and so forth. That's your assignment. You might want to write it down real quick. And then if you go on Canvas, class resources, your homework is right here.
We can't see the Canvas page.
You can't see the Canvas page?
Yes, we can still only see the assignment with the actual numbers we're supposed to do.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry. Let me Let me do screen share again. Let me do that again. So on the Canvas page, you guys have this up here. I don't know why it doesn't say .pdf. So try and open it real quick. It usually has a preview.
Nah, it's not letting me.
Okay. It'll be up here. In fact, the bell is going to ring. It will be up here within 5 minutes. Let me re-upload that. And then I'll write the assignment up here. So check again back in like 5 minutes, okay?
Okay.
All right. Sorry. I don't know. I just noticed that it wasn't doing that. So I'm